Yeah, I think you prefer to get it out. That's when you get the mixture. Stay pounds, if you're or not.
Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. As you can tell, we had another big chicken processing event here on the farm, and I want to take this video and explain how it turned out, some things that worked out well, some things that didn't work out quite as well, and I want to share the profit and loss details with you for those that are interested in generating revenue on their homestead, so you can see how it works out for us. So let me show you what we've got going on. I'll tell you. You'd think I had cows, as much deer crap as laying around here. I have to watch for stepping in. Okay, so those of you who haven't seen the videos here lately detailing this, we're in what I call the front pasture, what used to be our chicken pasture. You can see the old coop that used to have the two 5,000 square foot pastures for our egg layers. 2 years ago we took that down. So the plan this year was to run the Cornish cross, 3 chicken tractors you see behind there. Those are the Siskovich style tractors. And we put 33 chickens in there. That was the plan. 33, obviously one would have 34 because we ordered 100. The plan was to end up running 100 chickens in those 3 tractors in this area. And we had not run the Cornish cross in here, so I was trying to figure out exactly how many moves we'd have. Would we have enough pasture grass to finish that out? And we almost had enough. It's kind of interesting, and I'll show you the details here. So the first issue was just availability of pasture ground that I could actually put the chickens on. When, again, if you saw the video where we moved this portion of the coop to make our brooder building, then I was in here with a tractor and really kind of tearing up a lot of ground. This is a really bad soft spot. There's actually an old hand-dug well here that was filled in decades ago. And so it still kind of perks water every once in a while and stays wet and soft. So the tractor's really rutted that up. So when I started the Cornish cross, I actually started them right in this spot. You can see this is actually a line where I came back, but 3 tractors, bang, 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 going that direction. Came down, turned, came back, and then tried to kind of hug to one side here, because I know I couldn't go 3 wide at this spot. This is way too rough. So I took one that way, the second one behind it, and then took one this way. And we went up with the 2, turned the 2 around and came back with the 1 and went all the way up, and my property line actually goes further up in all those weeds, and I'll show you that in a second, to try to round out our coverage. So the neat thing about using tractors like this, whether it's Siskovich, whether it's Salatin style, you have consistency in the size, then you know, if you know the amount of time your chickens are going to be on your pasture, then you should know the number of linear feet you need to be able to move the tractor. So in this situation, we're 4 weeks on pasture to the date. I knew it was going to be exactly 28 days. So moving the chicken tractors that are 10 feet long, 28 days of 10 feet, I needed 2,800 linear feet of pasture per tractor to be able to move that. So it ended up working out pretty well, except the quality of grass diminished as you went further up the watershed. So the property line is looks like it's another 20 feet behind the camera. So I was kind of pushing my luck coming up to the edge, but as I was counting my feet and counting the moves, tractor number 3, which was coming this direction, the other 2 were going that direction, I knew I was going to come up to processing day before I ran out of land. So we just kind of got into some of this really heavy stuff. I didn't think the chickens really mess with this, but man, they absolutely loved it. When I would push a tractor in and knock it down like that, they would just dive into that this broadleaf and tear it up. But anyway, so as you can see, the ground has not recovered well. It's because it's only been a week. As you go further down the pasture where there's more sun that comes in, better quality of grass, less shade here, then it recovered quicker. But they still seem to do all right, and I'll share the weights here in a second. But it just wasn't the quality of grass. They really like the clover. They did like this broadleaf, but they like the clover a lot better. This position also gives me access to the stream. So what was interesting, when we'd have any rain events, I still have the old coop there, and it still has a gutter on it. So I would just set a bucket underneath the underneath the gutter on that 55-gallon drum, and it would catch some water. Then, of course, right here we have the main stream. There's our property line. You can see that barbed wire that represents the property line. I have this main stream that was still producing water, lots of water. Just here lately in the past 3 or 4 days, we've had some real dry heat, so it's dried up things. But it was nice having access to that water. I could just step down off the bank, fill up my 5-gallon buckets, and pour them into our waterers. So you can clearly see where tractor number 1 and number 2 split off a little bit because there's a huge rock. There's a huge rock here somewhere that I wanted to miss. Oh, it's right there actually. So I had to separate, but you can see where they weren't and where they were. It's pretty obvious. But so what do we start with? Well, again, in the very first video where we got the chicks in, we got 109. We ordered 100 from Meyer Hatchery. We got 109 Cornish cross, all viable when they came in. Throughout the course of the 4 weeks in the brooder, though, I lost 14. And I don't attribute that necessarily to the quality from the hatchery as much as I think I had an airflow issue in my brooder. There just wasn't enough air movement. It had a lot of moisture. The chickens get in there and they really start splashing the water around and stuff. So it's just one of those things with not a lot of airflow and the dampness. I think that may have had some cause. So we're going to put another window in before we run Cornish cross through there again. So when it came time to move 95 out on pasture in the chicken tractors, we put 95 out, ran them 4 weeks exactly in the tractors, and we actually finished with, well, we took 85 out of the tractors and took them up to the house just this last Saturday, and it was extremely hot, and I had one kick the bucket on me right in transport. So I actually did butcher him, but I kept him for ourselves. And so I put 84 actually through the full process and into the freezer. So before I share the processing details and the profit loss analysis there, I wanted to just share some of the takeaways I have from using this piece of property for my chickens. This is the first time we've run Cornish cross in this area, and again, we've lived on this property for 20 years. So one of the first things that I've discovered I need to do, and probably will try to do that this fall, is of course get our old coop out of the way, because that's taking up vital space. So talked about just lighting that building on fire, knocking it down. It's got good bones, but the siding on it's shot and the roof got damaged by hail. So still trying to figure out exactly what to do there. And So if I took that building out, filled in this low spot, tried to get some better drainage. Where I'm standing here, the drainage is really crappy, so it got a little muddy at times. Try to get this leveled out, and then just kind of push this way. If I come in and cut some of this brush, you see leaning out over our coop, let a little more light come in here. This is east, this is west. This way is almost exactly north, just off to the side of the camera there. So we do get a decent amount of light, and you can see it's in the evening time now, so this is all shade, which is actually works out great for the Cornish cross because they get some shade opportunities in the heat of the day. But I think if I was to expand this way, capture some of this hillside before it hits the side of the mountain up to the house, and get these spots leveled out, I believe I could run 2 tractors wide, starting all the way back past my side-by-side, come up this way, make the turn, and go back, and definitely be able to get, what did I say, 28 days? 28 days worth of moves out of 3 tractors easily. Like I said, it worked out here, but I did overlap. When I made my loop, I did overlap 1 or 2 days, which I don't like doing because when you overlap, there's just really nothing for them to eat. So what were the results and the potential profit loss of this endeavor? Well, first I should explain our goal. Our goal was to finish 100-ish chickens. Last time we did this, we ended up finishing 85. This time we finished 84. So that seems to be a trend there. But the goal was to produce enough chicken that we could sell half, if not more than half, recoup all of our costs, maybe even put a little bit of money back in our pocket, and then of course have half of those chickens, or a little bit less than half, for us to eat on until next year. So I can't stress this enough. I've talked about this before. I keep this little notebook here, and the reason why I like hard copy is I can stick it here in my pants, which one of y'all keep commenting I need to burn these pants, and yeah, they're getting pretty worn out, but I wear them every day on the farm, almost every day. They've lost some of their flex, but really handy with the pocket there, so I can keep my book in it. But I keep track of all of these type of details. It's almost like a farm diary, if you will. But in that, I detail notes, loss, those type of things. So even on this one page, I write down the total cost of ordering the chickens when we ordered the 100, how we got 109 all alive. And then I start detailing issues with loss. So on May the 2nd, we had 1 dead, no obvious issues. May 6th, 1 dead, showed signs of leg issues. May 9th, lost 3 over the last 3 days, leg issues. So little details like that help me come back and look at it, and I can go back to the last time that we did it and look at our P&L and all of those type of things, get an idea of the feed costs, what prices we're at that time. Really good guide to be able to come to easily. But the data geek in me can't stop there, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I guess it depends on what you look at. So I want to put everything in a spreadsheet. So I keep Google Sheets, because it's free, here on my phone, make it accessible. And I put all of the details in after processing. So we already recorded the details on the front end in my book, but then I moved those over into my spreadsheet along with processing details. So in this example, I'm listing the weights of all 84 chickens that we processed. So I put their weights in after they were processed on the scale. And then even if I mark them with an X, if we had something damaged, something I feel I'm not going to sell to a customer. And what we had 11 chickens that I put an X by. Either they were too small. We had one I called the Gimp, who can't believe that chicken stayed alive, but that thing only weighed 2 pounds when he was processed after 8 weeks old, when everybody else was 6 to 7 to 8 pounds. Anyway, so obviously I'm not going to sell that to somebody. He's going to end up in a stew pot. But I put a little X by it for these, what I consider damage or not resell. And one thing we had is in our plucker, as we were putting these chickens in, and when they were going around a little too hard, every once in a while a wing bone would bust through the skin. So we'd have a bone sticking out there. And I didn't want to sell that to somebody. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with the meat. It just doesn't look nice. If somebody's paying a premium for chicken, I don't want them to have a chicken with a broken arm. So by putting this in a spreadsheet, I can actually do the little math, do the spreadsheet magic to see what my average weights were and how that compared to the last time we did this, because I've got a little tab from 2018, because we didn't grow any in 2019. Tab from 2018 that tells us how we did. And I can compare that in my next tab for 2020. So in 2018, our average weight was 5.92, And this time our average weight is 6.12. So we raised them the same amount of time, fed them the same feed. We put them on a different part of the pasture. That was the only variable. And of course, maybe a little bit different time of year. I think last time we were a little bit earlier in the spring. But we actually increased in our size. And another interesting note to that when it comes to average weight is we actually this time did a straight run. So we had both hens and roosters combined in our Cornish cross order, whereas in 2018, I specifically wanted all rooster run. So it's interesting. So I spent the extra money. That was an extra $60, I believe. Spent the extra money to get all roosters, but my average weights were actually higher this time with a straight run. So another little error that I had that I'm hopefully going to learn from is my feed purchases. I ordered non-GMO chicken feed from my local feed store, but it's something they have to order and bring in because they don't stock non-GMO normally. So I had to put an order. It took a couple weeks to get in. So I did 2 orders of 20 50-pound bags each. That was 40 50-pound bags total when I really only needed 30 total. So I have 10 bags still up in the garage that I don't need for a Cornish cross because we've processed them already. Now I can't take those back, and I'm not going to throw it away. Obviously, I'll just feed them to our egg layers. But that wasn't the plan, to invest that extra expense in our egg layers. We only do that with our Cornish cross. So let's do a quick rundown. What was my total feed cost for this 8-week window for these 100 chickens? Well, my total feed cost for non-GMO feed was $645.07. When I throw that into my calculations for total cost analysis, we look at our chick purchase price was $176, including shipping. Our processing trailer that we rent, the really cool setup that we get, we rent it from a local association, nonprofit association, and that costs me, I believe it's $95, but that's part of that's $50 deposit. So as long as I return it clean, I get my $50 back, which I got my $50 back today. So that was only $45 out of pocket expense there, which gave us a total expense of $866.07. And that includes the 10 bags of feed that I haven't fed out. So I'm throwing that in there just to the best case scenario here, or worst case scenario, figuring out what exactly my costs were. So when I roll that into those costs into 84 chickens, I get a total expense per chicken of $10.31. If I was to take that feed out, 10 bags, and not include that because I am going to feed that to other chickens, then that gets my cost per chicken down to $8.55. Now, we had no other infrastructure expenses. Our chicken tractors here were all in good shape. Obviously, I did put a new tarp on one, which I had that tarp already. So we put a new tarp on one, but there was no major investments. All the waters, feeders, everything I already had. So there was no infrastructure expenses this year. So with 84 chickens, and the total weight that I added up here, I believe is 514.8 pounds. I believe if you do the math on that, it's a little over $2,000. So if I sold every chicken that we have in the freezer, then that would be a decent profit there, of course. We'd have a total of a little over $1,100, it looks like. But that's not our plan. Our plan isn't to sell all those. But unfortunately, that's an issue I've run into here, just not being able to forecast the situation. Of course, I don't know that anybody was able to forecast this situation this year with the pandemic. But the demand for our chicken has just skyrocketed. So the day of me recording this is 3 days after processing. I've sold every chicken if I allowed. I've got enough demand to buy every single one of my chickens, which won't leave any for us. So in 3 days, I was able to sell everything. We've had people putting down orders, deposits in advance, all those things, and we've been trying to pump the brakes on that, and it's been crazy. Kelly and I had a long talk last night about, do we order another run and go another 8 weeks and produce more chicken this year? It's very, very tempting, but just got a lot of other things going on. The brooder's tied up with a new egg laying flock that we have. We got pig processing coming up over the next 2 months. And I haven't been to camp this year. Our property up in the mountains has really been calling my name, and another run of chickens keeps me from doing that. So I don't think we're going to do that. If the farm was a sole income for our livelihood, then I would definitely do that. It's kind of one of those, make hay while the sun shines. But I think we're going to have to actually turn some customers away because we do not want to deplete our own chicken stock. I'm not going to work this hard to have to turn around and go to a box store and buy chicken. So, so we're probably going to keep some for ourselves. So I hope you all found this information useful. Again, it's obviously unique to our setup. So these things won't directly translate to your situation. You may not be able to get the price out of the chickens that we do, or you may be able to get 5 times as much. Just depends on the region you're in and your customer base. But I wanted to share this data with you. I want to be as transparent as possible. Sometimes on YouTube, everything seems like it's puppy tails and unicorns when sometimes there's wins and there's loses. So this actually, I put this in the win column, but it's definitely a missed opportunity. If I would have ordered more chickens, then we could have processed those with our trailer easily. It only took us about 4.5 hours to process those 84 chickens. So if I had 200 chickens or 300 chickens, I still could have gotten a day's work in. Now my friends, my good friends that help, Matt and Heather and my folks, may have wanted to kill me if I'd have tripled the order on chickens. But we could definitely had the capacity there while we had the piece of equipment. We had that trailer actually for 4 days. So I could definitely banged out some serious chicken processing. We'll make sure to share the same data when it comes to pig processing. Got that coming up in a couple weeks. We're doing 2 batches over the course of a month there. So we'll share that data as well. Similar situation. I'm already sold out on my pigs. And that is holding back what we like to have for the year. So you almost wish I had more pork standing on ground. But the trick is getting them processed these days. Fortunately, I have my dates nailed down. Well, comment below if you have any questions. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.